Kalsi is an award-winning healthcare professional with 2 decades of experience working in the NHS, private practice, and charity sector. Pav's key achievements include leading on a pivotal charity and food industry partnership, growing type 2 diabetes prevention policy, and developing content for an online diabetes learning platform. Alongside inspiring individuals to lead full, happy, and healthy lives, Pav is passionate about both South Asian health and behavioural change. She's made several media appearances, including the BBC, ITV, and Sky News, acted as an advisor to several TV shows, spoken at an all-parliamentary party group for diabetes, and also spoken at national healthcare professional conferences. Hello, Pav.
Hi.
Thank you for coming to talk with us today.
Thank you.
Pav, tell us, what is diabetes and what is the difference between type 1 and type 2?
Okay, so quite simply, diabetes is a condition, a lifelong condition where your blood glucose levels are too high. And there's 2 main types of diabetes, like you mentioned, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is the most common and roughly accounts for 90% of all cases of diabetes. And type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition where your body, your immune system destroys your insulin producing cells, and which means you don't produce any insulin whatsoever, and the result is high blood glucose levels. Type 2 diabetes is more lifestyle related, and it usually kind of develops over time, usually at a later age in life. And it's when you do produce some insulin, or the insulin that you do produce doesn't work very well. And again, the result is that you get high blood glucose levels.
And what is pre-diabetes? Is that different?
Yeah, so pre-diabetes, if you like, is a precursor to type 2 diabetes. It's when your blood glucose levels are high, but not high enough to be in the range for type 2 diabetes. And often people describe it as borderline diabetes. And in that situation, you're at higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes.
Does it mean that you are definitely going to become type 2 diabetic at some point in time?
Although your risk is high, it's not inevitable. And actually, we know through lots of research that if you make a significant change to your lifestyle, your dietary habits, lose weight if you're overweight, be more active, you can significantly reduce your chances of developing type 2 diabetes.
And is it true that diabetes disproportionately affects the South Asian community? And if so, do we know why?
Yeah, so South Asians unfortunately have a much higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. We're up to 6 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. And that's at a younger age and at a lower weight. And once people have type 2 diabetes, they're much more likely to develop the complications of diabetes as well.
And those complications can be quite dangerous or quite large.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of complications to do with diabetes, and it can affect your heart, your kidneys, your feet. So it's something that needs to be managed properly, and all those kind of things should be monitored so your risks of all those conditions are reduced greatly.
What do you think are some of the barriers in the South Asian community, and how can we overcome them?
I mean, it's really difficult. South Asians are genetically predisposed to having a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, but we can't do anything about that. What we can change is our lifestyle. And actually, it's a lot about what we eat and how we eat. Making small changes over time can really make a huge difference to your risk of diabetes and the risk of any kind of complications.
Is it possible then to celebrate our culture and our food and stay healthy?
Yeah, so I think it is. South Asian culture is very much about eating and socializing, and I think it's something that we should celebrate. Traditional foods can be very, very healthy. When in the West, we're often eating a combination of different types of foods, and it's keeping an eye on what you are eating and the amounts that you're eating. And there's some foods we need to eat more often, and there's some foods we need to eat less often. And it's important to understand how food affects your diabetes.
And what do you think are some of the misconceptions about diabetes?
Again, a lot of the misconceptions are to do with food. Everybody eats, everybody has an opinion on food. It's a really difficult one, and everyone offers their opinions. So it can be a very confusing and a world with lots of conflicting messages. What I would say is get the right information. Everything we do as dietitians is based on good evidence. So it's important to get the right information to make sure you are eating a healthy diet.
I guess that's what you would tell somebody, because if you are diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes, it's scary in a whole new world of understanding food. You might be scared of what to eat and what not to eat or drink. What would you say is a starting point for somebody who's been told they are diabetic or pre-diabetic?
It can be overwhelming. There's so much information to take on board, and food and diabetes is closely linked. What you eat directly affects your blood glucose levels and other aspects of diabetes. So it's really important to understand what you're eating, components of your food, and what kind of nutrients are offered as part of that food, and look at the overall balance in a day, in a week, and sit down and kind of make an assessment of what you're eating, get some advice, get some good quality advice about how to make those changes. And a lot of those changes are about behavior. I think a lot of people know what to eat. They don't necessarily know how to make those changes and make it as part of their life.
You used to work for a diabetes charity, and you've been used to advising people on how to manage their diabetes. And a little while ago, unexpectedly, you yourself were diagnosed with diabetes. How has it affected your life and your perspective?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So I've been working as a dietitian for nearly 20 years, 15 of those just focused on diabetes. Worked in the NHS and the private sector, and in the charity sector, and had a range of different type of roles involving advising people with diabetes, influencing policy on diabetes nationally, and increasing awareness of diabetes. So I've been talking about diabetes for a really, really long time. And you have a really good understanding of diabetes from speaking to other people with diabetes. Little did I expect to be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes myself. I left my last role, and within a few months, I had all the classic symptoms of diabetes, and I was really, really sure that I had type 2 diabetes because I'm South Asian and I have diabetes in the family. And I was really shocked to find out that I'd been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
That must have really been a surprise. What are the classic symptoms you were talking about?
Yeah, so a lot of the symptoms of diabetes are the same for type 1 and type 2. Some of the classic symptoms are feeling really thirsty, feeling really, really tired, going to the toilet a lot, especially at night. Some people lose weight when just before they're diagnosed, and some people get blurry vision. So there are some of the most kind of common symptoms of diabetes. And if anyone has any of those symptoms, which can often be confused for other things, it's really important that you go to your GP and get a blood test.
You're right, you could put those symptoms down to just getting older as well sometimes. So I think it's really important that people know those symptoms and know what to do if they're experiencing them. So diabetes has impacted you personally, and you've, like you said, been giving advice professionally to people throughout the years. Please share your experiences on being on both sides of the conversation. What have you felt is it been like?
Yeah, it's really strange because you give advice and you support people with diabetes to make changes to their lifestyles, and balance it with their medication to try and get good management overall. And part of it is education. So I understood everything about diabetes and why it happens, what actually happens inside your body, and the advice that you give. But being on the other end was really strange, actually, because first of all these figures and statistics were going through my head because I probably knew too much. But I think on reflection, what it has shown is that I've got a new level of understanding of what a person with diabetes might be going through on a kind of day-to-day basis, which you don't always see when you're speaking to a person with diabetes.
Do you think in all the years you've professionally been giving advice, there's stuff that, well, is there been any advice or phrase that you've used and you think personally, well, that's nonsense, or you think that's been really, really good and has helped to steer your journey?
Yeah, I mean, the advice that I would give is very much focused on the person. There is no one size that fits all, and there is no perfect way of eating or perfect diet for a person with diabetes. It's very much centered on the individual, their surroundings, their environment, their day-to-day lifestyle. There's so many factors that affect what you eat and how you look after yourself. And I really take time to understand someone's life before I give any kind of advice or make any kind of suggestions. So it's really important to tailor advice to the individual, I think.
You've recently launched your own business to do that and help people manage their conditions. How do you help people? How do you go about tailoring treatments to their life?
Yeah, it is difficult, and this is something that I've started myself, a business, so I can support other people with type 2 diabetes, especially from the South Asian community. I feel like a lot of the advice given or education around diabetes is quite generic. So it's personalizing it to the culture, to the individual. And as I said, I take a lot of time to understand someone's lifestyle, their shopping habits, their eating habits, how they socialize, even down to how their sleeping habits and activity levels, because it's important to get a whole picture of someone's lifestyle so you can tailor and personalize advice based on that.
You still let people eat jalebis now and then?
I mean, jalebis are a food that you can have now and again. Like I said, there's foods you need to eat more often, and there's foods that you have now and again. And jalebis are one of those foods.
Now and again. What treatment is there available to people, or what options do they have if they have been diagnosed?
Yeah, so for people with type 1 diabetes, the main treatment is insulin. Because they don't produce any insulin whatsoever, they will have to take insulin injections or insulin via pump to manage their condition. And again, lifestyle and diet and activities all play a part in that as well. For people with type 2 diabetes, it is known as a lifestyle condition. So it develops over time, and a lot of the advice and treatment is based around tablets and medication and lifestyle as well. So making changes to what you're eating, your activity levels, losing weight if you are overweight. So they're the main differences between type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
And what have you found personally has been helpful, or what have you found that has really worked in your treatment of diabetes or management?
Yeah, for me, it's overwhelming being diagnosed with any condition, especially if it's a long-term condition. And it's, for me, what's helped is taking things one step at a time, day by day, and not overwhelming yourself, and getting the right support. Even as a healthcare professional, I've had a lot of input from diabetes specialist nurses, and it's really nice to know that there's somebody who can support you on the other end of a line. And it's nice to know that it's good quality information and they understand what you're going through.
So you've decided you're a woman on a mission to help people using both your personal and professional perspectives and experiences. How do people find you?
Yeah, so I love to support other people in a similar situation to me, and offer some advice. I recently launched a new Instagram page, and you can contact me via that. It's Dietitian with Diabetes. So if you want, you can get in contact via that way.
And what do you normally do? Do people send you pictures, or do you provide pictures of what is a healthy, ideal plate?
So there is no healthy, ideal plate. But yeah, I can offer feedback and tailor it to your needs. So that is something that I can do, yeah.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today, Pav.